Have you noticed Big Oil just reported its profits, record profits? They invested too little of that profit to increase domestic production. And when I talk to a couple of them, they say, we're afraid you're going to shut down all the oil wells and all the oil refineries anyway, so why should we invest in them? I said, we're going to need oil for at least another decade, and that's going to exceed and beyond that. We're going to need it.
Oh, that was President Biden going after oil executives during his State of the Union address last night. Biden claims that the U.S. will need oil for at least another decade. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders delivered the Republican response.
The dividing line in America is no longer between right or left. The choice is between normal or crazy.
Joining me right now is Wisconsin Senator, member of the Senate Finance, Budget, and Homeland Security Committees, Ron Johnson. Senator, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for being here this morning. So much to talk about with regard to that State of the Union last night. I think it's really interesting that Joe Biden says we're going to need oil for the next decade, and yet his actions are to cripple this industry over and over again. Why is he making it harder for the oil companies to get lending, for the oil companies to do business, when, in fact, he's admitting we need oil for at least a decade?
Because he's being a hypocrite and he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. I have to say, I think Governor Sanders did an excellent job in the response. That's not an easy task, and she was straightforward. She was frank. She, I think, spoke what an awful lot of us are feeling and thinking, and pushed back on Biden's lies. I mean, we need to understand that the state of our union is not good. And it is the direct result of President Biden's policies. He said that he ran because he wanted to fundamentally change things. He's done that. He's changed things for the worse. 40-year high inflation, high energy prices, rising crime, growing threats from our global adversaries, record debt. Again, the State of the Union is not what it should be.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got lots of crises all over the place. Obviously, last week, and this spy flight, which was able to travel freely throughout the country for a week, is very troubling. We're trying to understand what this spy balloon or spy flight took back to this Chinese Communist Party, given the fact that the track was almost identical over military sites that have nuclear silos, Senator.
Well, again, my concern, and I've expressed it repeatedly on your show, Maria, is the extent that Joe Biden is compromised, I think, impacts the decisions he makes in terms of our relationship with China. So, again, I don't know the full extent of that compromise. I think I have a pretty good idea of it. And when you consider that they allowed that balloon to fly over sensitive sites and did nothing until it exited our territory, it is simply jaw-dropping. And none of their explanations make any sense. I have not been briefed yet by this administration. I think that's going to happen tomorrow. I don't expect to really hear anything substantive there, nothing that we don't hear in the public. And so this administration is not being transparent. It makes no sense whatsoever. And people ought to be highly concerned. I've been warning about the dangers of electromagnetic pulse attack. That could be delivered by a high-altitude nuclear attack, delivered potentially on a balloon. We had no idea what was in there. Why would you allow it to hover over our territory for so many days?
It's just extraordinary. And, the compromising angle here is real. I mean, do you think that the CCP has so much on the Biden family, on Joe Biden, that he's just afraid? He doesn't want all of that to come out? He's afraid to get tough?
I don't know all of his foreign financial entanglements, but I'm quite confident the Chinese government does, that the Russian government does, that the Iranian government does, which is what Chuck Grassley and I tried to warn the American public about prior to the 2020 election, but the media covered it all up, and now we're dealing with the consequences. Yeah,
yes, you did, for sure. Now there's this new report from the Washington Free Beacon alleging that Hunter Biden attempted to get a job at the Penn Biden Center, the same place Joe Biden was keeping those classified documents. The Beacon reporting that since the school launched the Biden Institute, countries like China and Saudi Arabia have poured millions of dollars into the University of Delaware as well. Senator, I know you're going to be a witness before the House's Weaponization of Government Committee. What are you planning on saying there as a witness? And what should we understand about the tie-in of Joe Biden's compromised position and these classified documents at University of Pennsylvania, potentially University of Delaware, 1,850 boxes of documents at the University of Delaware?
I think the main thing the American public needs to understand is that the radical left has infiltrated basically every institution of this country, starting with higher education. Of course, then you have colleges and universities educating our journalists. They're educating our lawyers. They're educating our teachers. They're educating our teachers to indoctrinate our children. And so it shouldn't surprise anybody that the radical left has infiltrated government agencies. And so we see the partisanship. And when you are in government, you have awesome power to be used against United States citizens in a partisan fashion. And, my eyes were opened when the IRS was weaponized against Tea Party groups under the Obama administration. And it's continued ever since. We've seen the FBI certainly corrupt in their investigations of the Russian-Trump collusion hoax. We saw them exonerate Hillary Clinton in a partisan fashion. We've seen the concerted and coordinated effort between the news media, Democrat operatives, Democrat elected officials in a very partisan fashion to utilize their power to weaponize against Americans and certainly defeat their political opponents. So it's a very pervasive problem we have in this country.
Can that be unwound quickly, the politicization of the FBI and the DOJ? I mean, look at the Twitter files and what we've learned from these Twitter files. There's going to be a hearing on the Twitter files as well. But it's clear that you had up to 1,000 people in government in several agencies, not just the FBI. FBI, CIA, DHS, DOD, they all had their own lists of people that they wanted censored on Twitter. And Twitter just went ahead and worked with government to do it. So, I mean, your thoughts in terms of the politicization and how long it would take to actually take the politics out of arguably our most important law enforcement agency, the FBI.
In order to do that, the truth needs to be exposed. So a little bit of the truth has been exposed by Twitter. We've got whistleblowers exposing a little bit more. We have a number of pieces of the puzzle, but there's a lot of the puzzle that is completely hidden. And unfortunately, the actors in government, they know what they've done. They have all the power to hide things. The Department of Justice, the FBI, they'll hide behind the fact that, well, we're in active investigation, so we can't provide the records we subpoenaed of Christopher Wray. So again, they hold all the cards. They know what they've done, and they're very good at maintaining those secrets. So it's all about exposing the truth. We need congressional oversight. We're not getting it on the Senate side at all, not on the border, not on how much all their deficit spending has sparked inflation. Across the board, we're not getting the kind of oversight. And of course, the administration is going to be dragging its feet in cooperating with the House investigations as well.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk with the chairman of the House Oversight Committee in a few minutes. James Comer is here. Senator, it's always a pleasure. Thanks very much for being here this morning.
Have a good day.
Senator Ron Johnson will be